Thank you.
Sure.
Anyone else?
Paul Gallagher, 8 Longview Drive. You know, I haven't been able to attend a lot of the meetings because I've been busy with work and other things. But I can say that, you know, feeling reminiscent of the train days and Paul Tannis's box of goodies, and understanding and appreciating the terrible ordeal these people are going through. Having been a selectman for over 6 years and sitting behind the desk, I understand what all of you are going through. But through conversations with residents, conversations with elected officials, conversations and readings and in local publications and looking on Facebook and seeing this, we're at a crisis level here. This is a crisis. This has affected these people's, not only their physical well-being, but their psychological well-being. You can only see that in their faces every time they speak, every time you watch a meeting. We're at a crisis level. And, you know, I'm not here to berate anybody or to disagree with anybody or tell anybody they're being politically incorrect. But what I am here to say is that it's at a crisis level and it needs to be addressed as a crisis situation. And having voted to hold a public hearing and missing the deadline to get it out is not addressing it in a crisis situation. It's unfathomable to think that after all of these months and what these people have been through and what all of you have been through, to miss the publication so that you cannot hold the public hearing.
That wasn't what happened, Paul.
Joe,
what happened was there was insufficient time.
Right, exactly, exactly. But Joe,
selected.
but that's the point. It's not how it happened. It's the simple fact that it did happen. That you voted to hold a public hearing and you had insufficient time. You should have known that ahead of time.
Paul, I would also point out that we did not have our professional in the room at that to advise us of that when we became aware of it.
Right. And all I'm saying, Joe, is that you're at a crisis level. It needs to be dealt with as a crisis. And because people aren't here, that stuff needs to be followed up on. To hear the discussions today, about borrowing this machine, one, you know, you're asking who's going to operate it. You don't even know what the machine or what the software is. It may require 3 or 4 people until you get the equipment. But the simple fact that you discussed it before and you're just voting today to send a letter asking for it is detrimental to this whole process. It just continuously compounds the crisis situation that you have going. And I think I think that I'm saying it only for the fact that people need to hear that that's where we are. People need to feel comfortable that, okay, it's not just us, the residents, and it's not just the Board of Health that understands this. It's others in the community that are concerned about this, because it affects more people than just these select few that keep showing up here. It's just that someone gets flicker for 5 minutes and just blows it off. But on the next sunny day that's headed our way in the next few weeks, it could be 10 minutes, and then you're going to have a compound of who's being affected by it. You know, I can only say that, you know, I've heard, I think I read it in the newspaper, and I wish I could confirm it, I think I read it in the newspaper, that both Senator Murray and State Rep Coulter are no longer supporting the windmills like they used to. But I haven't seen an effort by your board or the Board of Selectmen to say, we got a huge issue. We need DEP to help us out. We need CDC to help us out. Can you guys push? And that needs to be done. You're beyond what we can handle here. We need to get to the state level and inform them that you're in a situation that is almost uncontrollable, and it needs to be addressed immediately. And the more pressure you get from all those different places, the faster it's going to happen. And you know, like I said, I'm not here to berate or Monday morning quarterback or anything, but I think that the town needs to know that this is beyond anything that's acceptable, and that things need to start happening, and that it needs to be addressed as a crisis situation, because these people are in dire straits.
Well, I'm going to thank you, Paul. And all the things that you mentioned, all those agencies are involved and have been involved since May.
Right, but you know, you have DEP that could have started 2 weeks ago to do a compliance test on. And it's not being done. That's what I'm saying, is that you guys need to demand this stuff happen right away, and you need to get the state rep and the state senator involved to say this needs to happen right away, and they'll be here right away.
They've done it, and thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
So I guess what I'm saying is I'm kind of agreeing with Mr. Gallagher in the fact that we have been requesting the Board of Health to help our families because we are all suffering from noise and flicker. And, you know, none of us can take it anymore. We're tired and we need help. And the Board of Health, you're not doing what the authority, I have it all here, what your authority is. And you could shut all those turbines down until they can prove that it is not affecting our health. Because I can guarantee you that it's affecting all 5 of us in my house.
Anybody else? Mr. Sapp?
Yeah. My God, Paul, I agree with you.
Isn't that a first, Dan?
I am proud to agree with you. Wow. I want to suck it up because it may not happen for a while. Paul has always been
not
a
that I
voice
would've
of
been.
conciliation. I hope everybody in this room heard exactly what he said, which is this is not like the national criminal decorum that's taking place. It may be that we're not giving some people here exactly what they want. It would be equally damaging if we told you to go home, we're just going to get our own statistical information. We're going to cherry pick that information. We're not doing any of that. And Paul knows, because he's talked with some of the members here, that we don't feel real good about this. And I'm glad you said that. Because sometimes the speech here is directed towards members as if they don't care, simply because we're not accommodating certain requests. And I'm just simply saying that were we to cherry pick other information and not listen to you, the reverse is true. We can't take just what, this is my own opinion, I'm speaking for the board. I cannot take just what you folks say and make my decision based upon that. So, I'm echoing what Paul said. I'm glad you gave me the floor, thank you.
I don't know if you said all
I
of
wanted
that.
Paul to hear that.
I didn't, but that's.
I really wanted, I thought you were leaving the room,
Okay.
but I wanted you to hear that.
Okay,
Yeah.
Dan was speaking, everyone.
Thank you.
Okay, I yielded my time.
I yield back to the man.
All right. You know, I'm glad to hear that you have the experience of having sat on the Board of Selectmen quite a number of years. You know the routine, you know how things get done. And the thing that has frustrated me most is the fact that the one thing that we really could have done without a lot of problems that could have helped us immeasurably would be special counsel. It's clear in my mind that you can't be looking toward the guy that the selectmen gave the responsibility of working out the details of the contract. Because what's going to come back to you is predictable. It's going to be a defensive move, and we know that because it's not an issue that Dan said it or that Jack said it or anybody else. It was in that memo from council. Any member of the board, any citizen could have read the fact. It was quite clear from town council that I cannot represent you, I cannot advise you, and the only statements that I can make are those that would be in support of the selectman's position and the entire process of the contractual arrangements that went on between town council and the ownership of the Independence turbine. So it's predictable. We can't use, and we shouldn't have used Jay Talman for any of these matters. Not because he's a bad guy, he's a boobala. But the fact is, he was so directly involved in the contractual aspect that you can't turn to him. You can't do it. And, you know, I'm not even certain that, you know, Mr. Dwyer, when I hear what you're asking for, I know I would feel a lot better if we had counsel representing us to say, that's what you gentlemen wish to do.
He told you had the authority.
You have my,
verbatim.
even he said we had the authority. But I don't think he meant it. I mean, he said one thing, and again, I read with interest a letter that, from the selectmen. I know one of the members of the selectmen is asking for a clarification on why such a watered-down letter came back to the Board of Health when it was very strongly stated at that particular selectmen's meeting. Some of you may have been there. Is that you could take the hardest approach in dealing with this in a very tough manner. He said that at the selectmen's meeting, and they asked that be communicated back to the Board of Health. And what we got was something about, you know, we're still support this type of energy, and it was not at all, and it was on TV, so there's nobody can say, you know, I'm interested in what the minutes of that meeting have to say, but you can't change reality, and getting a tape certainly creates reality. That's what was said. You know, I've read some negative things about maybe me, that grandstanding, doing this, doing that. Not the case. I'm only trying to look at this and presenting a perspective that makes sense, and I think it would have made, you know, obviously we're getting a back and forth with Talaman. We need somebody that represents the Board of Health, and that's never happened, and that's so easy. Even to the extent, Mr. Dwyer, to have a lawyer say to us, yep, you can legitimately do that. You know, and I know what you're going to say, that he said that, but he's not a source that we can continue to come back to say, you said we can do this, you're on our side, you're working with us on this, here's what we want to do, make it happen.
Only because you addressed me, I'd like to respond.
Yes, I
If I
understand.
could too, Joe, excuse me 1 second. Only because Dan was quite adamant about how he
Yes,
agreed
he
with me.
addressed you first, go ahead. Paul.
Yeah, only because I want to just clarify, because Dan and I, obviously Dan thought it was good that we agreed, but I do have to disagree with his continued comments so that no one thinks that I'm in agreement of that
No one
part.
would think that.
One thing I can say about town council is town council represents the members of the Board of Selectmen and the best interest of the residents of the town.
Thank you, Paul.
He has done that in everything that I was involved with him.
Thank you again.
It doesn't always make sense, it's not always what we want to hear, but he makes recommendations, and as Dan has said, we don't always have to agree to that. Because he suggests that you shouldn't do that because it will cause litigation, then you have every right to say, well, I am in disagreement. I disagreed with all of the town councils that we had in the past. I said, but I don't want to continue. What appears to me and other people that I've spoken into town is that there's some kind of conspiracy between town council, maybe some of the members of the Board of Selectmen, and people that have anything to do with the windmill. I do not believe that is the case. I believe Jay Talaman went in and negotiated some kind of a contract with these people and then presented it to the members of the Board of Selectmen, and those members that you have elected decided to go with that contract. Nothing to do with him or hold him completely responsible for the way that happened. You just cannot do that. And I don't think that Jay Talaman has in any way, shape, or form kind of worked in cahoots with anyone to make things happen the way they have. It's just the way it is.
Thank you.